So let's talk about English literature. Have you ever tried to map it all out? I mean, it is this massive, epic story, right? We're talking more than 1,500 years of clashing swords, incredible poetry, and ideas that literally changed the world. And yeah, it can feel pretty overwhelming. You try to connect the dots, and it feels like you're lost in some kind of crazy maze. You've got Beowulf way over here, then suddenly you're with Shakespeare, and then Virginia Woolf pops up somewhere else entirely. How in the world do they all connect? It is a lot to keep straight. But here's the thing. What if I told you there's a key, a super simple tool that can unlock this whole timeline? Just snap everything into place and make all those connections, well, crystal clear. Okay, let's get right into it. This is our chronological roadmap. We're going to use this really powerful memory trick, a mnemonic device, that's going to be our guide for this entire journey. Seriously, it's an amazing tool for getting this timeline down cold.
And here it is. Get ready for it. Old men read English romantically, victoriously modernized. I know, it sounds a little weird, right? But trust me on this one. This single sentence is our secret weapon. Every single word represents a major literary period, and what's wild is they're in perfect chronological order. Let's break down exactly how this thing works.
All right, so let's use our roadmap and take a quick spin through literary history. We're going to start with that very first word, old. So first up, old. This stands for the Old English period. You might also know it as the Anglo-Saxon period. This is where it all begins, really. It was an era of oral tradition, so just picture it. Warriors huddled around a fire, listening to bards tell these incredible epic poems about heroes fighting some seriously scary monsters. And this is the world of Beowulf, the foundational epic poem of English lit. I mean, this is the big one. It's known for that heroic poetry and this really cool poetic style called alliterative verse. That's where you get that repetitive sound at the beginning of words. This whole era comes to this really dramatic end in 1066 with the Norman Conquest, which was an event that, and I'm not exaggerating, changed the English language forever. All right, let's move on to the next word in our sentence, men. This brings us to the Middle English period. So after that Norman Conquest we just talked about, the language and the stories, they really start to change. You can feel a whole new kind of storytelling starting to bubble up. The absolute giant of this era, Geoffrey Chaucer. And his masterpiece, The Canterbury Tales, is just wow. It gives us this unbelievably vibrant snapshot of medieval society. You get stories from everybody, knights, merchants, peasants, you name it. It's like a perfect window right into the soul of 14th century England. Next up, read. And read brings us to the Renaissance. This was a period of this incredible cultural rebirth. It wasn't just a shift, it was a seismic explosion, a tidal wave of humanism, artistic genius, and pure curiosity that just completely reshaped England. And this, of course, is the age of the heavy hitters: Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, John Milton. Their work was massively inspired by classical Greek and Roman stuff, and they just blew the doors off the old boundaries of drama and poetry. I mean, these guys fundamentally shaped the language we're speaking right now. Okay, our next word is English. And honestly, this one's a bit of a catch-all for a time of super fast evolution. It kicks off with the Restoration period, which was full of all the sharp, witty satire. Then that flows into what we call the Augustan Age, which was all about reason and order. But here's the big deal. The main takeaway, this whole century-long shift in thinking is what laid the groundwork for something totally new, the birth of the modern novel as we know it. All right, so we've got the first half of our timeline locked in. Now let's kind of slow down a bit and use our roadmap to really zoom in on two huge back-to-back eras that, let's be honest, get confused all the time: the Romantic and Victorian periods. So what is the difference? I mean, they're literally right next to each other on the timeline, but their view of the world could not be more different. They were reacting to completely different things happening around them, and you can see that fundamental shift in thinking all over their literature. So the Romantics, that's our word, romantically, they were all about passion. Just think of poets like William Wordsworth getting lost in nature, or the dark, gothic horror of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. These guys were all about championing intense emotion over cold, hard logic. It was about the power of the individual, the mind-blowing beauty of nature, and this deep fascination with the supernatural. And then, boom, the Victorians arrive. That's our Victorians. And they pretty much slammed the brakes on all that idealism. So what happened? Well, they were living right in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. Their books and poems reflect that gritty reality, the factory smoke, the giant sprawling cities, these huge social problems, and this brand new sharp awareness of the divides between classes.
This table really nails the contrast, doesn't it? It perfectly shows that core shift. You've got the Romantics looking inward, focusing on personal imagination, deep emotions. And then you have the Victorians looking outward, at the massive challenges of a society wrestling with everything from poverty to the idea of progress. It was this fundamental move from the ideal to the real.
And that really drives the point home, This timeline is always evolving. Literature is always a reaction, a conversation with what came before, and a reflection of the world right now. And that brings us to the final word in our little guide, which takes us smack into the 20th century. Modernized. This, of course, stands for the modern period. And you can't talk about this era without talking about the trauma of World War I. It was a catalyst. It spurred this radical break from the past. Writers like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce they ripped up the rulebook. They shattered traditional story structures, experimenting with things like stream of consciousness, all to try and capture what it really felt like to live in this new, fragmented, modern world. And that path leads us pretty much to where we are now, the postmodern period. This really took off after World War II, and the literature gets even more skeptical, more playful. It starts questioning the very idea of a story. You see writers mixing genres, dropping in references to other books and movies, intertextuality, and sometimes even breaking the fourth wall, basically winking at you to remind you that, hey, you're reading a book. So you see, our little mnemonic, old men read English romantically, victoriously modernized, it's more than just a history lesson. It gives us a framework to look at our own time. Think about it. Our world is defined by things like social media, artificial intelligence, constant global connection. So what's the story we're telling right now? And what's the one word, the single defining word that future historians are going to use to describe us?